So welcome to the next edition of the Rare Business Podcast. With me today, I have Geraldine McBride, CEO of MyWave. Hi, Geraldine. How you doing?
I'm very well, Adrian.
So, Geraldine, for the benefit of our listeners and readers, can you tell us a little bit about you and a little bit about the work that you do?
Well, a little bit about me. As you can tell from my accent, I'm a New Zealander, but I've lived and worked overseas for about the last 17 years in the States and Asia Pacific and also actually up in the UK.
Mm-hmm.
I've been in the technology industry for about 27 years, both a decade with IBM and 17 years as president for SAP of Asia Pacific, Japan, and North America. And in February last year, I left SAP with a decision to start my own next-generation technology company called MyWave, because I saw that the last mile of railroad track, which had never been laid, which was connecting enterprise brands and consumers together, the technology just was not there to put the consumer in some control of actually managing that relationship and signaling their needs and intents to brands.
Right.
There was a big gap there.
Okay.
And so that's what I decided to do.
Fantastic. Now, it's funny you should mention SAP because I recently interviewed Jamie Anderson of SAP about customer relationship management and moving to this era of not CRM but moving away from CRM to this idea of CMR, which is where this all started. And then I saw an article that Dr. Graham Hill had written on Paul Greenberg's blog that mentioned MyWave, and that's what precipitated this this contact. So can you tell me a little bit more about what it is you're actually trying to do? I mean, the sort of the nuts and bolts of it, and how you're doing it, and what are the implications kind of for what you're up to?
Yes. Well, basically what we've done is we've developed a platform that flips the model.
Okay.
So in the old model, and I remember I was involved in taking CRM to the market. It's a 13-year-old concept CRM. And what we've done is that we've had a 150-year-old industrial revolution model, which was all about one-way push, all the way up to an end consumer. And the consumer in the old days was always just a passive recipient at the end of that value chain.
Yeah.
Whereas with the consumer revolution, with all these mobile devices, and particularly with tablets and mobile phones, there's been a consumer revolution where there's more power now in the hands of the customer than at any time in the history of the planet.
Yeah.
And also, you've got the next generation of millennials who've come through, who are social digital natives. And so any kid born post-1986 are social digital natives. And they're not looking at being a passive recipient on the end of a value chain anymore. There is a lot being written, whether you look at The Power of Pull, which is written by Hegel, or you look at Joe Pine's book, which is who authored The Experience Economy, where people are prepared to pay a premium for great experiences, or Dr. Searles, with regard to VRM and vendor relationship management. And by the way, we've actually had a lot of input from all of those great luminaries in terms of the design of MyWave. All of them have a different paradigm. And the paradigm is to give the customer more power and ability to be able to signal their needs, their preferences, their wants and intents back to enterprise brands.
Right.
And so what we've done is we've built a platform, and it's basically based on three things. First of all, it's mobile first.
Right.
But it's not just mobile, so it's not just an app. We have a beautiful personal digital assistant on the front end where any customer can talk to their personal digital assistant, and we call him Frank, and I've sent you a video of that so you can see Frank.
Brilliant.
All right, and what Frank does is he asks the person, how can I help you today? And so Frank is actually able to ask you these questions, and you're able to talk to Frank using natural language. That's the first point. So basically, in the same way that you're used to talking to a phone to make a phone call, you can just touch a button and talk to Frank.
Right.
And Frank actually never asks you the same question twice because Frank learns. So Frank actually refers to information about you in your personal cloud. And that personal cloud contains all the information about you, who you are, your likes, your preferences, and not only you, but you and your family, your friends. So that there are social elements with that as well.
Right.
And so there's a lot of information about yourself that you then can elect to then opt in and share with brands. So I'll give you a very simple example.
Okay.
In a normal world, let's take a very simple example of a cup of coffee, because everyone relates to a cup of coffee. When you want a cup of coffee, if you had a real live assistant the assistant would ask you, what kind of coffee do you like? And of course, in fact, Adrian, I'll ask you right now, what kind of coffee do you like?
My brand of preference is Lavazza.
Okay, good. And how do you like your coffee?
I make it in a cafetiere, so basically, if we're talking about coffee shops, it'd be Americano.
Yes, coffee shop.
Americano with milk.
Okay, great. So now Frank's going to know that you like an Americano with milk.
Mm-hmm.
So basically, the next time you need a cup of coffee, you tell Frank, I want coffee. Frank will remember that you like Americano with milk. Mm-hmm. And so if you're near a coffee shop, all right, that is actually where you're able to place your order, you could actually walk into the coffee shop, you would have placed your order, you would have already prepaid for your coffee, all you have to do is walk by and pick it up.
Right.
That's what Frank does. So what it does is it removes friction in the value chain. And that's a very simple example. Now imagine that now with a bank. So some of the work that we're doing is, imagine you're looking for a new house. Mm-hmm. And you tell Frank, I want a bigger house. And Frank is going to now say, well, what type of house do you have in mind? And you say, well, I would like a new house near me. And so Frank will be able to go out and help you find the new house. And also start to, the banking relationship conversations would come in with, would you like a top-up to your mortgage? Would you like a new personal loan? And once you've got the house, Frank will say, you can say, I'm looking for a new sofa. Right. And so effectively what the bank can do now is actually help you get the new sofa for your house. So what you'll see in the video that I've sent to you are some examples of how MyWave can help you with this. So we've got the personal cloud, we've got the personal digital assistant, and then behind that we have all the data is encrypted, so it's secure. The consumer is in control of their own data, and a lot of the enterprise brands that we work with like that, because one of the problems with CRM that we never solved was that data, the moment it goes into a CRM system, often gets out of date. It's stagnant data is what we call it. Right. And so the way companies try and address that is they try and address it with what they call big data. Yeah. And there's nothing wrong with big data. The problem with big data, though, is it's not my data. It's all inferred about me, of what they gathered about me from maybe from my Facebook or from other data sources. But it's never a contextual about what I'm doing at that very minute and what I want to do next. Yeah. So what we call that living little data. Okay. So what MyWave does is it actually starts to, all that living little data sits with me in my personal cloud. So imagine now the power of where living little data meets the power of big data through opting in. And so let's say, for example, if I'm looking for my next car and I'm intent casting and I'm saying, I actually want a new four-wheel drive, and my preferences are Land Rover and maybe Porsche Cayenne. Right. And so if I was signaling that intent, now offers can come to me relevant and specific to me because I'm looking for either a Porsche Cayenne four-wheel drive or I'm looking for a Land Rover. And then the next step in the conversation is, well, once I've got that, would you like insurance? And so effectively, all the way through, instead of me having to go out and find these things, which is often a lot of work, I'm at the center of my own universe, and things are coming to me based on my preferences and based on what I'm signaling. And I think it's really well written up, actually, in Dr. Searle's book, The Intention Economy, which actually describes that type of paradigm.
Okay. Now, does that mean that, so one of the things you said was talk about control of data and ownership of data. So that handles a lot of the data privacy issues that are emerging, as it were. I guess the other thing the next thing that occurred to me when you were talking was that the idea of adoption and getting people to sort of opt into that, into this new sort of paradigm and using the technology that you're talking about. I mean, how is that going to come from the enterprises themselves, or is that going to have to be done separately? And you're having to connect people, and it becomes a bit of an ecosystem of sorts.
Yeah, well, you're spot on. In fact, that word ecosystem is spot on. So there's a couple of ways of doing it. First of all, some of the early companies that we're working with are companies that already have what we call two-sided networks. So if you think about a bank, and think about a loyalty company, it's just two examples. Right. What you have on the one side is you have consumers. We call them willing buyers. Mm-hmm. And then in the case of some banks, they also have they're quite big in business banking, particularly small, medium enterprise, who are very underserved today, generally by most institutions. Yeah. So they are what we call willing sellers. And so what you can start to do is that banks can emerge to become trusted fourth parties in these types of networks with an ecosystem. Mm. Loyalty companies could emerge to become trusted fourth parties in these environments. But equally, MyWave also we're experiencing a significant amount of what we call customer pull, where wherever we show MyWave, the consumers ask us, oh, we love this. When is it ready? And so we're starting at the enterprise level first, though, rather than starting at the consumer level, because what's really important in ecosystems is that you end up with actually getting the end-to-end experience.
Yeah.
So that you actually have got Frank connected to doing things for end consumers.
Sure.
But what we're finding is as we're going into the market, and we've started off in Australia and New Zealand, but we've got a lot of what we call market pull coming out of the UK, and also, interestingly enough, the Netherlands.
Right.
Where companies up there are already working with looking at how they can actually connect to their consumers better. Obviously, the privacy laws are very similar, actually, between Australia and New Zealand, Britain and the European Union. We have a very similar attitude toward the sovereignty of people. And, in fact, in New Zealand, I participated with the government here on a paper which was called the Data Futures research down here, where the importance of consumers controlling information about themselves is very important. Otherwise, you can end up with nightmare scenarios where, incorrect inferences are being made about you, and you never know that, and you never have an opportunity to correct that.
Sure. And so does that mean, well, the other thing that, before I go into the next question, the other thing that occurred to me when you were talking earlier was that it seems to me also that not every brand is going to be the same, and not every consumer is going to want to have the same sort of relationship with the brand. So does that have does that imply that some firms or some brands might get left out of this ecosystem because of the nature of the product and service that they offer?
Well, I think that the trend is going to be, if you actually look at it, the average company half a century ago lived 75 years. Today, the average lifespan of a company is 14 years, and that's declining.
Okay.
And most of those companies are being digitally disrupted. So those old-fashioned value chains, where they actually owned every step in the value chain, and the moats that they put around themselves and the castles that they built around themselves to defend those industries, are being digitally disrupted. And you're seeing that happening across every industry, whether that's the travel industry, whether that's the banking industry, insurance, you pick any industry, even manufacturers. Everyone's being digitally disrupted. So what people look at MyWave as is it gives them an opportunity to actually become a disruptor rather than being disrupted.
Right.
And one of the reasons why they're struggling is that they are not being digitally relevant to their own customer. Customers don't think it's good enough anymore to interact with a static website. And in fact, 60% of decisions are being made about them not on a website. And the challenge with social media is that it's just that. People are going into social media for other reasons, and even 50% of the data that sits in social media is also fake data. So, it's very hard to have a trust network there.
Sure.
So what we're doing with major enterprise brands, and we're starting with the enterprise brands, because if you think about it from a bell-shaped curve and early adoption, there are a number of early adopter, really switched on, awake enterprise brands that are looking at these new ways of being relevant to their customers. And those are the ones that are actually sort of moving into what we call double-digit growth. And those that are sitting with the old model, where they still treat the customer as the passive participant at the end of that value chain, they're the ones that are in slow single-digit growth. So the companies that are moving into these new paradigms are the ones that are actually going to be the winners for the future.
Okay. And so does that mean, if we extrapolate out, does that mean that CRM and CRM sort of systems, as we've come to know them rather, does that mean, do you think that they are, is it CRM is dead, long live CRM?
No, I think there is a role for CRM behind the firewall.
Okay.
What we say when we go into enterprises, some of them say, well, we don't need our CRM systems, and we say, well, look, you've got data in your CRM systems, but you can actually make your CRM systems much more useful if you actually took that data, which is often stagnant, all right, and inferred, and took that data and actually shared it back with the end consumer with a conversation that would go like this. Here's what we know about you, and in order for us to be able to serve you better, we'd like to know more about you in these areas. Right. And by the way, this information is actually your information. And so what you do is you then auto-populate that into the MyWave personal cloud. with a personal digital assistant. You share that information back with the end consumer, and suddenly you're now engaged in a digital dialogue and a relationship with the end customer. Now, where some brands have done that, they're finding that, first of all, they're getting a number of immediate benefits. First of all, they're starting to create real digital conversations with real people, down to a segment of one. The second benefit they're finding is that the cost to serve those customers is much lower.
Sure.
Because they're not actually having to maintain that data behind the firewall. The data is being maintained automatically on the other side.
Sure.
But because the data is encrypted and they're sharing that little data with the big data, suddenly they're getting insights and able to create what we call precise promotions and precise offers in ways never been able to done before. But again, in order to not be spam-like, the consumer opts in. So the consumer will say, yes, I am interested in receiving offers here. Or, for example, let's take the airline industry. Nothing has become more commoditized than the airline seat. In fact, the airline industry has commoditized itself down where basically people don't value anything about an airline anymore other than the price of the seat. How commoditized is that? They've all joined each other in a race to the bottom to deliver the worst possible experiences for their customers.
Yeah.
And yet, what they could start to do is move back up their value chain by starting to think about creating travel experiences. Because not everybody wants to sit in a tiny little seat. That's hard and makes that trip to wherever you're going to difficult.
Yeah.
So travel experiences could be that I'd pay a premium for additional concierge services, or where I didn't have to stand in a line, or where my luggage was actually dropped off to my hotel, so I could actually get onto my meeting or go and enjoy my vacation in a much better and less stressful way than the way in which the airline has treated it today. So I think that what happens is that we've become so industrialized in the way in which we think about customer experience. It's about thinking about all those moments where you can delight the customer and deliver great experiences. And again, this is where my wave is so powerful, because the reason why you can't design those wonderful customer experiences is because you don't know what the preferences are. So if you knew my preferences and I'll tell you what my preferences are when I travel. I don't like to stand in lines, and I pay a premium for that. I really am sick to death of these small, narrow airline seats, and I would pay a premium, and I do where I can get one. But so often there are planes that just don't have them.
Sure.
And thirdly, I like low-rise hotels, often on the edge of nice views, with windows that open. And if you could give me offers around hotels in those areas, then I would be interested. And so if I was signaling my intent to take my family on a Pacific Island vacation in August, which is our winter time, and the budget was, say, $4,000, then the airline could create very targeted promotions around that. And that's what my wave enables.
Okay.
Today you can't do that very easily. All I get is spam of offers for all over the place. And so those spam offers deliver a 0.1% return versus precise offers that deliver about a 36% chance of return.
Well, it sounds like it's also that it's going to have huge implications for, if you take your travel example, for example, if I as a customer am being more specific about what I want to do in the budget I've got, and you're pushing that directly to the travel companies, that could possibly disaggregate some of the agents that are still in the market, and also some of the the aggregators.
Well, yes. Although if the agents and the aggregators were smart, and in fact we've had a couple of agents actually coming to us saying they really like what we're doing,
right.
They actually could become almost a trusted fourth party. So it means that either airlines or aggregators or agents can also move up the value chain and deliver much better travel experiences. So the opportunity, to go back to your point, those companies start to see the power of the ecosystem and the networks to deliver new end-to-end customer experiences beyond the narrow product that they define. Now, I sit as a board of directors on a number of major companies, and what I do see is that companies become very besotted with their own product.
Yeah.
And in fact, what they do is they wake up in the morning and think about, let's design another product. What they don't think about in the morning is they don't look at the world through the eyes of their customer and start to think about their jobs to be done.
Sure.
So when I book a travel seat, what is it that I'm trying to do? It's not just to get the seat. All right. It's actually, I'm looking for an end-to-end experience.
Sure.
I'm looking for everything from, a car that might pick me up from my home to landing me at a beautiful hotel somewhere, which either is going to make me, be productive for my business, or to have a great holiday with my family.
Sure.
And it's these end-to-end experiences. The same thing for a bank. The bank wakes up in the morning thinking, oh, well, let's generate another mortgage product. But people aren't looking for mortgages. People are people are looking for a home. So then when you look at the world through the lens of the consumer or the customer and their home, suddenly you start to look at the new end-to-end experiences. Well, it's not just the mortgage for the home. It might be that I want to renovate my kitchen. Mm-hmm. So, for example, we've got use cases where I've bought my new home. 6 months later, I really didn't like the kitchen. I'm going to issue an intent cast with MyWave to the tradies and the banks network to be able to get the new kitchen that I want. So I take the photo of my dream kitchen. I intent cast my dream kitchen out to tradies that might be in the bank's trusted network. The tradies quote on that. The bank can say, well, would I like a personal loan or a variation on my mortgage for that? And I get the kitchen of my dreams.
Right.
That's the sort of paradigm that MyWave enables.
Fantastic. What you were saying before reminded me of an old saying that I really like from Theodore Levitt, and it says people don't buy quarter-inch drills, they buy quarter-inch holes.
Yes, exactly right. And that's exactly what MyWave enables, is that we give you such insight in the relationship with the customer that you're able to provide the whole. Now, the whole is not a commodity. No. The drill has become our commodity. So if you can then start to imagine the end-to-end services you can create about the whole, then remember, it's not even just the whole. It's then saying, well, you've got the whole. What else did you want to put in the whole?
Wow,
what did you want to hang on the whole? How can I help you?
Exactly. That's great. So, Geraldine, that sounds really exciting. But what are the big challenges ahead for MyWave? I mean, is it that you battling a lot of incumbent inertia? Is it education of your enterprise, sort of clients that you're talking to? What are the big challenges that you've got to get over to get this past the sort of the early stage adopters, do you think?
Yes, well, I think that we've been pleasantly surprised by the momentum that we have already gained.
Okay.
So our sense was that there is a wave of change in the world, and I think that companies are realizing that they can't keep doing business in the next 5 years the way they've been doing business in the last 5 years. Mm-hmm. So I've been asked to do more keynotes in the last year than I've been asked to do in my last 17 years. So people and companies and analysts are very intrigued by MyWave. In fact, I presented at Morgo, a major conference just a couple of days ago, and I think one of the major media magazines there said that MyWave is one to watch. Right. So we do have early adopters. As in all technology adoption life cycles, this reminds me a lot about when I was at SAP back in 1994, when we were taking SAP out to the world. And we were very new then, a 3-tier client server with graphical user interface, and everybody wanted to talk to us. It feels like that again with MyWave, right. Where a number of early adopter companies are very intrigued. What's interesting is that some of the less advanced companies sit there and listen, and they go, wow, that was hard to get my head around, but now that I understand that, because remember, we've flipped the model. So everyone's so used to 120 years of push model. Yeah. To start to look at the push working with a pull model is actually very new. But once people understand that there is a push model and a pull model, and they actually can act together, and by doing that, you're actually reducing waste and you're increasing productivity, people start to understand it. But I don't think that we're alone, because remember, Doc Sills has a very powerful VRM movement, and there are lots of companies out there that are already, working in this paradigm. Mm-hmm. If you look at Control Shift, they produced a very interesting report recently where they valued what they call the personal information economy, of which we're cited within that report. And that was commissioned partially by the British government, which looked at what was the productivity that could be freed up in the British economy for both enterprises and individuals through the use of technology such as MyWave. And they valued that at £16 billion. So there is a lot of value to be unlocked in this new world. So I think that we're leading the vanguard of that movement, and we're doing it in a very creative way. We have development teams in Melbourne. We're based in So we're based in Australia and New Zealand. We're getting a lot of pull out of the UK, so we'll be setting up an office in the UK, I think, to service the European sort of market. Mm-hmm. And so those are our sort of next steps. And we're probably looking at we've had a very successful capital raise in New Zealand, so we had no issue in attracting significant capital. In fact, we still get people contacting us every week wanting to invest, but we don't need more capital at this stage. And we're probably looking at a New Zealand Stock Exchange listing for MyWave in the second half of 2015. I don't know whether you're familiar with a very well-known cloud accounting software package called Xero.
Yes.
The founding chairman of Xero is actually our founding chairman, Phil Norman. So we were able to also attract a very strong board of directors. So there's a lot of good people behind this technology, and we've got a top-flight CTO and some very, very strong people within the team, because we're only as good as the great people we surround ourselves with.
Absolutely. So, Geraldine, when can we? This all sounds very exciting, and I'd like to see it in action, sort of play around with it, sort of thing. Is when can we expect to see the first MyWave start to sort of hit the market and sort of start to become available for sort of consumers in different countries?
Well, there's a sneak peek video, so we released our first sneak peek video to the market. Actually on Friday, so you can. That's a live demo, so that's living software. Somebody asked me the other day, "Is it all real?" And I said, "Yes." We've developed all the code. Those are real scenarios. In fact, that's a video recording of live things. So I've sent you a short video demo. We're working under NDA because with non-disclosure agreement with a number of major brands at the moment. Because they see this as a very disruptive play into their own market. So we're actually already prototyping with real consumers. So what we've done is we've developed what we call use cases of what we think the customers would want. We're now engaging in scheduling workshops now with the real live SMEs and with the real live consumers to test that these are the scenarios that they want, and we'll be releasing those together with enterprise brands in the market in about first quarter, second quarter 2015. So we are being very careful about how we're taking out those first customer experiences, making sure that they're really, really good. And then in addition, in parallel to that, we are creating what we call more generic, non-brand specific MyWave use cases, which any consumer can download. We're thinking about things like, aggregating my music playlists, because at the moment all my playlists sit all over the place, which is really annoying. So imagine, say, we're all aggregated in my personal cloud, and I just said play my playlist. Yeah. We're looking at, we've got examples of setting up my day, which helps me organize my day and getting my things done. So there are a number of other sort of consumer-specific services that we're also putting into MyWave, which are independent of any brand. And so, like with any new technology to market, we're bringing out some very basic things, and then we make them richer and richer over time. And we're really limited only by our imagination with the technology that we've created.
Fantastic. Geraldine, that sounds, it's mind-bending and brilliant and fascinating and really exciting as well, because it's a logical extension of the wave that we're seeing in terms of the shift of locus of control away from business and enterprise towards consumers, and this sort of if you like rounds it all up. So I think it's really interesting and exciting, and I'll be glued to the airwaves, so kind of watching your progress.
Yes, no, thank you, Adrian, and we'd be delighted to continue to sort of do further podcasts as we sort of go further on our journey and keep everybody up to date. We've got a lot of people following us at the moment and participating, and we're very grateful for all the support that we're getting.
That's brilliant. So, Geraldine, I always finish my podcast on on one final question, and I think you possibly have answered this already, but I'll give you another go at it anyway. And that is there anything that you'd like to shamelessly plug?
Shamelessly plug. Let me think about that for a minute. No, you know what? I don't think there is. I think we've told the story. I'm excited by our story. This is not a job for me. This is a passion. In fact, all of our people in the company are united by that passion. And we're just delighted to be, participating in the world to help change the paradigm and get that beautiful dance between the enterprise and consumer a lot more balanced, so that there's great value created on both sides. both for the customer and also for the enterprise brand.
That's brilliant. Thank you.